Graham Whitaker had everything: a billion-dollar tech empire, the world's fastest car, and a room full of engineers who called him a genius. But when his luxury hypercar stalled in the middle of a crowded downtown street, none of them could fix it. Cameras rolled, people whispered, and Graham stood helpless, until a 13-year-old black boy in torn sneakers and a busted bike stepped forward and said, "I can fix it." Laughter followed, until the engine roared. What no one knew was that Jordan wasn't just some poor kid from the wrong side of town. He was a self-taught prodigy with a mind sharper than any degree and a heart built to endure. And this was the day the world found out. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The morning sun reflected off the glass towers of downtown's financial district, creating a canyon of light and shadow that Graham Whitaker navigated with practiced ease. His hypercar, a $2 million piece of engineering perfection, purred through the streets like a mechanical predator. Graham checked his Patek Philippe watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The presentation to the investment board was in 40 minutes, and everything hinged on this meeting. His company's revolutionary self-driving technology could reshape the entire automotive industry, and today he would secure the funding to make it happen. The car's engine note suddenly changed. What had been a smooth purr became a stuttering cough. Graham frowned, his hands tightening on the steering wheel as the vehicle began to shudder. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree, warning lights flashing in rapid succession. Smoke began seeping from the hood vents, and the acrid smell of burning electronics filled the cabin. "No, no, no," Graham muttered, wrestling the dying vehicle toward the curb. The engine gave one final, violent shudder before dying completely, leaving the hypercar stranded in the middle of the intersection of Madison and Fifth. Cars behind him immediately began honking, their drivers leaning out windows to shout colorful observations about his driving skills and choice of parking spots. Graham's assistant, Marcus, who had been following in a company SUV, was out of his vehicle before it fully stopped. The young man's usually composed face showed barely contained panic as he rushed to Graham's window. "Sir, I'm calling the tech team right now. They can have someone here in," he checked his phone, 45 minutes minimum." 45 minutes? Graham's voice carried the kind of controlled fury that made board members squirm. "The presentation is in 38 minutes. Marcus, get this thing moved. Call a tow truck, call the police, call whoever you need to call." But it was already too late. The spectacle of a hypercar dying in the middle of downtown had drawn a crowd like blood in the water draws sharks. Pedestrians gathered on the sidewalks, their phones raised to capture every moment. Within seconds, Graham could see himself reflected in dozens of screens, his frustration being live-streamed to the world. "Is that Graham Whitaker?" someone called out. "The tech billionaire?" "Yeah, that's him." "Hey, Whitaker, maybe you should have bought a Tesla instead." Laughter rippled through the growing crowd. Graham forced himself to remain calm, stepping out of the vehicle with as much dignity as he could muster. His Italian suit, worth more than most people's monthly salary, felt suddenly constraining in the humid morning air. Marcus was frantically making calls, his voice rising with each unsuccessful attempt to find immediate help. From the edge of the crowd, a young boy watched the chaos unfold. Jordan Thompson was 13 years old, though his worn, oversized clothes made him look younger. His bike, held together with duct tape and determination, had a busted chain that forced him to push it along the sidewalk. He'd been on his way to Mr. Kim's bodega to see if the old man needed any deliveries run when the commotion caught his attention. Jordan studied the smoking hypercar with the intense focus of someone who understood machines on an instinctive level. The way the smoke rose, the particular shade of gray it carried, the stuttering pattern of the warning lights still visible through the windshield, it all told him a story. His fingers itched with the familiar urge to fix what was broken. He moved closer, weaving through the crowd with practiced ease. His oversized Chicago Bulls jersey, a hand-me-down from a neighbor's older son, hung loosely on his thin frame. Someone bumped into him, nearly knocking him over, but Jordan barely noticed. His attention was locked on the car's exposed engine compartment, which Marcus had popped open in a futile attempt to diagnose the problem. "What's the kid gonna do?" A man in an expensive suit laughed, noticing Jordan's approach. "Draw it back to life with crayons? Someone call his mommy before he gets hurt." More laughter. Jordan ignored it, the same way he ignored the kids at school who mocked his patched sneakers, or the fact that he brought the same peanut butter sandwich for lunch every day. He'd learned long ago that words were just noise when you had work to do. Graham was arguing with someone on Marcus's phone when Jordan stepped into his peripheral vision. The boy stood at the edge of the car's open hood, his dark eyes scanning the engine compartment with surprising intensity. "I can fix it," Jordan said. His voice was quiet, but carried a certainty that made Graham pause mid-sentence. The crowd went silent for a moment before erupting in fresh laughter. Someone shouted, "Kid thinks he's a mechanic." Another voice added, "This ain't no bicycle, boy." Graham looked at the child properly for the first time. Torn jeans, scuffed sneakers held together with electrical tape, hands that showed the telltale signs of someone who worked with tools, small cuts, oil stains that wouldn't wash out, calluses in all the right places. The boy's eyes, though, those were what caught Graham's attention. They held none of the amusement or mockery of the crowd. They were focused, analytical, already solving the problem. "Security," Graham said quietly to Marcus, who immediately moved toward Jordan. But Jordan didn't flinch. Instead, he pointed at the engine compartment. "Your thermal management system failed. The battery cooling loop probably has a blockage, and when it overheated, it triggered the failsafe relay. But the relay itself is fried now. I can smell it. That's why nothing's responding, even though the main systems should have cooled down by now." Graham held up a hand, stopping Marcus. The boy had just diagnosed in 30 seconds what Graham's own limited automotive knowledge couldn't parse. "You can smell a fried relay?" "Sure," Jordan shrugged. "It's different from regular burning. More metallic, like when you leave a penny on a hot stove." He leaned closer to the engine. "The relay's right there, behind the auxiliary battery pack. If you had a paper clip or something metal and thin, I could bridge the connection temporarily. Just enough to get the car started and moved." The crowd had grown larger, phones still recording. Graham could feel the weight of their attention, the story that would be told regardless of what happened next. Billionaire's car rescued by street kid, or desperate executive lets child damage $1 million vehicle. Either way, he was already going to miss the presentation. "You know what?" Graham said, surprising himself. "Go ahead, kid. Show us what you've got." Marcus looked horrified. "Sir, the liability alone." "What liability?" Graham cut him off. "The car's already dead. Let him try." Jordan didn't wait for further permission. He circled the vehicle once, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a multi-tool that had seen better days. From his bike's basket, he grabbed a small roll of electrical tape and what looked like a pin that had been taken apart and reassembled multiple times. The crowd pressed closer, their mockery fading into curiosity. Jordan worked with the efficiency of someone who'd spent countless hours fixing things that others had thrown away. He removed the pin's metal clip, straightened it with precise bends, and created a small bypass tool. "Someone's going to need to turn the key when I say," Jordan said without looking up. Graham found himself sliding back into the driver's seat, waiting for instructions from a 13-year-old. Jordan's hands moved inside the engine compartment with surprising confidence. He located the failed relay by touch alone, his fingers navigating the maze of components like a pianist playing a familiar song. Using the modified pin clip, he carefully bridged two specific connections, holding them steady with one hand while using the other to adjust something Graham couldn't see. "Now," Jordan said calmly, "turn it to accessory mode first. Don't start it yet." Graham turned the key. The dashboard lights flickered to life, and the crowd made appreciative noises. Jordan made another adjustment, his forehead beating with sweat from concentration rather than effort. "Okay, give it a half turn more, but be ready to stop if I say." The car's computer systems began their startup sequence. Jordan watched the lights carefully, then made one final connection with his makeshift tool. "Start it." Graham turned the key fully. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a smooth roar that sounded like music to Graham's ears, the engine came to life. The crowd erupted in genuine applause, in amazement. Someone shouted, "Yo, did that kid just fix $1 million car with a paperclip?" Jordan stepped back, wiping his hands on his jeans. He didn't smile, didn't bow, didn't acknowledge the crowd at all. He simply began collecting his tools, preparing to return to his bike as if he'd done nothing more remarkable than tie his shoes. "Wait," Graham called out, but Jordan was already pushing through the crowd. "Kid, wait. What's your name?" Jordan paused just long enough to glance back. "It'll hold for maybe 20 minutes. Get to a real shop. The relay needs replacing, and you should check the cooling system for whatever caused the blockage in the first place." And then he was gone, pushing his broken bike through the crowd that parted for him now with something approaching respect. Graham sat in his running hypercar, watching the boy disappear around a corner, his mind racing faster than his restarted engine. Marcus appeared at the window. "Sir, we could still make the presentation if we leave now." Graham shook his head slowly. "Cancel it. Cancel it." Marcus's voice cracked. "Sir, we've been preparing for months." "Reschedule it," Graham clarified. "And find that kid. I don't care what it takes. Find him." The video had 17 million views by the time Graham made it back to his office. Someone had uploaded it with the title, "Poor Kid School's Billionaire's Entire Tech Team," and the internet had done what the internet does best, turned it into a sensation. There were already memes, remixes set to music, and frame-by-frame analyses of Jordan's repair technique by amateur mechanics and professional engineers alike. Graham sat in his corner office, the city sprawling out below him through floor-to-ceiling windows, and watched the video for the dozenth time. Each viewing revealed something new. The way the boy had diagnosed the problem without any diagnostic tools. The confidence in his movements. The complete lack of hesitation when working on a machine worth more than most houses. "His name is Jordan Thompson," Marcus announced, entering the office with a tablet full of information. 13 years old. Lives with his grandmother in Washington Park. Goes to Dunbar Middle School. No father listed on any records. Mother died when he was 7. Graham looked up from the screen. "How did you find him?" Facial recognition from the video, cross-referenced with school databases and social services records. "Completely legal," Marcus added quickly. "Public information only." Graham studied the school photo Marcus showed him. Jordan looked younger in it, uncomfortable in front of the camera, wearing what was obviously his best shirt, which wasn't saying much. "What else?" "He's unusual," Marcus said carefully. "Teachers say he's brilliant when he shows up, but his attendance is spotty. He fixes bikes for pocket money, helps neighbors with their cars, repairs appliances." There's a note here from shop teacher who says Jordan rebuilt a lawnmower engine from scratch when he was 11, without instructions. The public was already creating its own narrative around Jordan. Social media had split into predictable camps. Some claimed the whole thing was staged, a marketing stunt for Graham's company. Others called Jordan a genius who deserved better opportunities. A few suggested he'd gotten lucky, that anyone who'd watched enough YouTube videos could have done the same thing. Graham made a decision. "Clear my schedule for tomorrow afternoon. We're going to pay Mr. Thompson a visit." The Washington Park neighborhood was a different world from Graham's usual haunts. Buildings with more boards than windows lined streets where potholes had given birth to smaller potholes. Graham's black SUV looked alien here, too clean, too expensive, too much like a Target. Marcus had wanted to bring security, but Graham had refused. You don't build trust by showing up like an invading force. The apartment building where Jordan lived had seen better decades. The elevator was permanently out of service, according to a sign that itself looked decades old. Graham climbed 5 flights of stairs that creaked protests under his Italian leather shoes. The hallway smelled of old cooking and older dreams, the kind of place where hope had learned to keep its head down. Graham knocked on apartment 5C. Through the thin door, he could hear movement, a short discussion in hushed tones, then footsteps approaching. The door opened to reveal an elderly black woman with silver hair wrapped in a colorful headscarf. Her eyes, sharp and protective, assessed Graham with the kind of instant judgment that comes from years of having to read people quickly. "Mrs. Thompson?" Graham began. "Miss Loretta Thompson," she corrected firmly. "And you're that rich man from the video? The one whose car my Jordan fixed?" "Yes, ma'am." I wanted to thank him properly and talk to him about an opportunity. Miss Loretta's eyes narrowed. What kind of opportunity? Because if you're here to exploit that boy for some feel-good news story, you can turn yourself around right now. He's been through enough. Grandma, it's okay. Jordan appeared behind her, wearing the same Bulls jersey from the video. He looked smaller in his own doorway, younger, more like the child he actually was. He's not here for that. Miss Loretta stepped aside reluctantly, allowing Graham to enter. The apartment was small, but meticulously clean. Every surface showed the kind of care that came from having little and treasuring it all. A wall of photographs showed Jordan at various ages, always with his grandmother, always with that same serious expression that suggested he was thinking about something more important than smiling for cameras. Graham sat on a couch that had been carefully maintained despite its obvious age. Jordan sat across from him in a chair that didn't match anything else in the room. Miss Loretta remained standing, arms crossed, a guardian ready to eject Graham at the first sign of trouble. How did you know what was wrong with my car? Graham asked directly. Jordan shrugged. The symptoms were pretty clear. That model has a known issue with the cooling system when the software doesn't properly manage the battery temperature during rapid acceleration. You were probably pushing it hard before it failed, right? Graham nodded, surprised. I was running late. But how do you know about that specific issue? I watch a lot of videos. Read forums. The library has free internet until 8, and Mrs. Washington lets me use her tablet sometimes to download repair manuals. Jordan pulled out a notebook from under the chair, its pages stuffed with loose papers and covered in detailed mechanical drawings. I like understanding how things work. Graham looked through the notebook with growing amazement. These weren't just copies of existing designs. Jordan had been improving them, solving problems that million-dollar engineering teams struggled with, using nothing but pencil, paper, and an internet connection at the public library. I want to sponsor your education, Graham said. Private school, tutors, whatever you need. You have a gift that deserves proper cultivation. The room went quiet. Miss Loretta's expression hardened further, if that was possible. Jordan looked down at his hands. We don't take charity, Miss Loretta said firmly. It's not charity, Graham countered. It's an investment. Your grandson has abilities that could change the world. He just needs the right resources. The world's been changing just fine without us, Miss Loretta replied. And every time someone comes around here talking about investment and opportunities, it ends with them taking what they want and leaving us with less than we started with. Jordan finally spoke up. I don't want to go to some fancy school where everyone will look at me like I don't belong. I just want to build things, to fix things, to make something that matters. Graham leaned forward. Then let me offer you something different. A challenge. You come to my company for 1 week. I'll give you access to tools, materials, space to work. You build something that impresses my team of engineers, MIT graduates, industry veterans, and I'll set up a workshop for you. Your own space, your own tools, no strings attached. Why? Jordan asked, his young face skeptical beyond its years. Because that video isn't going away. People are calling you everything from a fraud to a genius. The only way to control the narrative is to prove what you can really do. And Graham paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I remember being dismissed when I was young. Not as young as you, and not for the same reasons, but I remember someone gave me a chance when logic said they shouldn't. I like to pass that forward. Jordan looked at his grandmother. Something passed between them, a conversation without words that spoke of trust built over years of having only each other. 1 week, Miss Loretta said finally, but I'm coming to check on him every day. And if I see anything that seems wrong, we're done. Graham nodded. Fair enough. There's one more thing. He pulled out his phone and showed them the social media storm. People are going to try to find you. Reporters, content creators, all kinds of people wanting to use your story. You might want to be prepared for that. Jordan studied the phone screen with the same intensity he'd shown with the engine. 23 million views now, he observed. But look, half the comments are saying it's fake. They think you hired me. Does that bother you? Graham asked. Jordan handed the phone back. People are going to think what they want. I can't fix that. I can only fix things that are actually broken. Graham stood to leave, then turned back at the door. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. My assistant will pick you up. I'll take the bus, Jordan said quickly. I know the way. As Graham descended the creaking stairs, he could hear Miss Loretta's voice through the thin walls. You be careful, Jordan. That world he's from, it's not built for people like us. I know, Grandma, Jordan replied, but maybe I can build something better. Back at his office that evening, Graham assembled his top engineering team. The conference room filled with skeptical faces as he explained his plan. You want us to give a 13-year-old kid access to our lab? Derek Harrison, the lead systems engineer, looked incredulous. Graham, I respect the PR move, but this is ridiculous. We have proprietary technology in there. The kid's clever, I'll give him that, admitted Maya Patel, one of the younger engineers. I watched the video. His diagnostic process was actually solid. But there's a difference between fixing a problem and creating solutions. Then let him prove it, Graham said. 1 week. Give him a real problem to solve. Something we've been struggling with. Derek laughed harshly. Fine. We've been trying to optimize the thermal management system for the new battery array for 3 months. Let's see what the boy genius can do with that. Monday arrived gray and humid. Jordan stood outside Graham's building, a gleaming tower of glass and ambition, his notebook clutched against his chest. He'd worn his best jeans and a clean t-shirt, but still felt underdressed compared to the stream of suits flowing through the revolving doors. Marcus met him in the lobby. Mr. Thompson, right on time. The elevator rose smoothly to the 32nd floor, opening onto a reception area that probably cost more to decorate than Jordan's entire apartment building was worth. But Jordan's eyes went straight to the wall of patents, each one representing a problem solved, an innovation achieved. This way, Marcus led him through security doors into the lab. It was paradise. Tools Jordan had only seen in videos lined the walls. 3D printers hummed in one corner. Computer workstations with screens that seemed to go on forever. And in the center, a collection of battery cells and cooling systems that made his fingers itch to understand them. The engineering team was waiting, their expressions ranging from curious to openly dismissive. Derek stood at the front, arms crossed. All right, kid, Derek said, his tone making it clear what he thought of this whole exercise. Here's the problem. We need to reduce the thermal buildup in this battery array by 30% without increasing the size of the cooling system or reducing power output. We've tried 17 different configurations. None of them work. You have a week. Good luck. The team filed out, leaving Jordan alone with the problem. He stood there for a long moment, then slowly walked around the array, observing it from every angle. He pulled out his notebook and began sketching. By lunch, word had spread through the building that the viral video kid was in the lab. Employees found excuses to walk by the glass walls, peering in at Jordan, who seemed oblivious to the attention. He had dismantled part of the cooling system and was studying each component with intense focus. Maya stopped by around 2 o'clock. You need anything? Food? Water? Jordan looked up, blinking as if remembering where he was. Do you have any thermal paste? The good kind, not the cheap stuff. Sure. She hesitated. You know Derek set you up to fail, right? This problem might actually be unsolvable with our current technology. Everything's unsolvable until it's not, Jordan replied, already turning back to his work. By Wednesday, Jordan had built 3 different prototypes, each one failing in interesting ways. But he didn't seem discouraged. If anything, each failure made him more determined. He'd covered an entire wall with equations and diagrams, creating a visual map of the problem that made several engineers stop and stare. Is that kid using advanced fluid dynamics? One whispered to another. Where would he even learn that? Graham watched from his office through the security cameras. Jordan worked with a focus that reminded him of himself at that age, though he'd been in college, not middle school. The boy took breaks only when his grandmother arrived with food, the two of them eating together in the lab, while she asked questions about what he was building. Thursday afternoon, Jordan made a breakthrough. Instead of trying to reduce the heat after it was created, he redesigned the battery's discharge pattern to create less heat in the first place. It was elegant, simple, and something none of the MIT graduates had considered. It won't work, Derek said flatly when Jordan presented the idea. The discharge pattern is optimized for power delivery. Change that, and you lose efficiency. Not if you cascade the discharge across multiple cells in a rotating pattern, Jordan countered, pulling up his calculations. Look, each cell only works at maximum for 30% of the time, but the overall output remains constant. Less heat per cell, same total power. Maya leaned forward, studying the numbers. That's actually brilliant. It's like having 3 batteries taking turns instead of 1 battery, working 3 times as hard. Derek's face reddened. It's theoretical. Building it is another matter entirely. Give me until tomorrow, Jordan said quietly. He worked through the night. Graham, unable to sleep, came to the office at 3 in the morning to find Jordan still there, carefully assembling his prototype with the patience of a watchmaker. The security guard mentioned that the boy had been there all night, refusing to leave even when the building officially closed. You should go home, Graham said. Get some rest. Jordan looked up, his eyes red with exhaustion, but bright with purpose. It's almost done. Just need to calibrate the controller. He paused. My mom used to say that the best ideas come when everyone else is asleep, when the world is quiet enough to hear yourself think. Graham sat down nearby, watching Jordan work. Tell me about her. She fixed things too. Cars, mostly. Taught me that everything broken is just a puzzle waiting to be solved. Jordan's hands never stopped moving as he talked. She died when I was 7. Cancer. Couldn't fix that. I am sorry. Jordan shrugged. Grandma says Mom will be proud that I'm carrying on her work. He made a final adjustment and stepped back. Want to see if it works? Together, they ran the prototype through its paces. The temperature readings stayed 35% below the baseline. The power output remained constant. It worked. When the engineering team assembled Friday morning for Jordan's final presentation, the skepticism was palpable. Derek, in particular, seemed ready to pounce on any flaw. But as Jordan walked them through his solution, explaining each decision with clear logic and hard data, the room grew quiet. The cost increase would be minimal, Jordan concluded, maybe 3% per unit. But the efficiency gain and reduced cooling requirements would save more than that in the long run. Run the simulation again, Derek demanded. They ran it 5 times. It worked every time. Maya started clapping, slowly at first, then others joined in. Even Derek, grudgingly, had to admit the solution was elegant. Graham stood in the back, watching Jordan handle the questions with growing confidence. So what now? Jordan asked when the presentation ended. Do I get my workshop? Graham smiled. You get more than that. You get to keep working on this. We're going to patent this design with you listed as the lead inventor. And yes, you get your workshop. But I have a feeling that's just the beginning. As Jordan packed up his notebook, now filled with new ideas and possibilities, Graham noticed something different about him. He stood a little taller, spoke a little louder. Not arrogant, just present, like he'd finally found a space where he belonged. The video of Jordan fixing the car had gone viral because people loved the story of an underdog making good. But Graham knew the real story was just beginning. The boy with no resume had just out-engineered a room full of degrees. And this was only week 1. The following Monday morning arrived with Jordan standing in Graham's private lab, his innovative battery design now being tested at scale by the full engineering team. The success of his prototype had shifted something fundamental in how the company viewed him, though not everyone was pleased about it. Jordan carefully arranged the components for his next project on the workbench. Over the weekend, he'd filled another notebook with designs for something even more ambitious. A hybrid engine that used kinetic feedback from the vehicle's movement to boost energy efficiency. It was the kind of thing he'd been sketching for months in the margins of his school notebooks, refining during those long evenings at the library. You're really going to attempt that? Maya asked, looking over his shoulder at the complex diagrams. She'd arrived early specifically to see what Jordan would work on next. Why not? Jordan replied, his hands already selecting tools. The principle is sound. When a car brakes, all that kinetic energy just turns into heat and disappears. But what if we could capture it? Not just the basic regenerative braking everyone uses, but really capture it, store it, and feed it back into acceleration. Maya pulled up a chair. Our team spent 8 months on something similar last year. We couldn't get the energy conversion efficient enough to make it worthwhile. That's because you were thinking like engineers, Jordan said, then caught himself. I mean, no offense. None taken. What do you mean? Jordan grabbed a marker and started drawing on the whiteboard. Engineers learn the right way to do things. But sometimes the right way is just the way everyone agrees on, not the best way. Look, he sketched out a traditional energy recovery system. This is what everyone builds. Linear. Energy goes from motion to battery to motion again. But what if we made it circular? As he explained his concept, Maya found herself leaning forward. The kid was describing something that shouldn't work according to everything she'd learned at MIT, but his math was solid. More than solid, it was elegant. Derek Harrison walked in just as Jordan was finishing his explanation. His face darkened when he saw Maya's expression of genuine interest, filling the kid's head with impossible dreams. Patel? Actually, Derek, you should look at this. I don't need to look at anything. Derek cut her off. The boy got lucky once. That doesn't make him an engineer. It definitely doesn't mean we should waste resources on his fantasies. Jordan turned from the whiteboard, meeting Derek's glare steadily. It's not a fantasy if I can build it. You can't. Give me 2 weeks. Derek laughed, but was sharp without humor. You know what? Fine. 2 weeks. But when you fail, and you will fail, you're done playing in our lab. After Derek stormed out, Maya shook her head. You shouldn't have taken that bet. He's going to make sure you fail. How can he do that? Jordan asked, genuinely puzzled. You really don't know how this world works, do you? Maya's expression softened. Derek's been lead engineer here for 5 years. He has access to everything, including your project. He could sabotage it, withhold resources, reassign me, so you don't have help. Then I'll build it anyway. Jordan interrupted. My mom used to say that obstacles are just opportunities to be more creative. That afternoon, Graham called Jordan into his office. The view from the 32nd floor still made Jordan's stomach flutter. All that space, all that possibility spread out below. I've been trying to get you into Preston Academy, Graham said without preamble. It's the best technical prep school in the state. Their graduates go straight to MIT, Caltech, wherever they want. Jordan shifted uncomfortably. I don't need a fancy school. You need proper education. You're brilliant, Jordan, but brilliance without foundation is like building a skyscraper on sand. Graham pulled up the school's website on his monitor. Look at their facilities. They have equipment that would make our lab jealous. And how many kids there look like me? Jordan asked quietly. Graham paused. It was a fair question. Not many, he admitted. But that could change. You could be the one who opens doors. I don't want to be anyone's door opener. I just want to build things. Before Graham could respond, Marcus knocked and entered. Sir, the Preston Academy board is here for the meeting. 3 people entered. 2 men in identical Navy suits, and a woman whose pearls probably cost more than Jordan's entire apartment building. They looked at Jordan like he was an exotic animal that had wandered into their boardroom. This is the young man. The woman, introduced as Mrs. Blackwood, barely concealed her skepticism. How unexpected. Jordan has exceptional abilities, Graham began, but Mr. Hartley, the taller of the 2 men, interrupted. We've seen the video, Mr. Whitaker. Very entertaining. But Preston Academy has standards, academic foundations that must be met. Has the boy taken advanced mathematics, physics, chemistry? I've studied them, Jordan said, speaking for himself. Online course, library books, self-taught. Mrs. Blackwood said the words like they tasted sour. How quaint. But Preston Academy requires documented education, Mr. Thompson. Transcripts, test scores, teacher recommendations. His school records, Graham started, show irregular attendance and average grades. Mr. Hartley finished. We've done our research. Jordan felt his face burn. Those grades are because I was working, helping my grandmother pay rent, fixing things for money instead of sitting in classes teaching stuff I already knew. Regardless, the 3rd board member, Mr. Winston, spoke for the first time. Preston Academy isn't a charity. We have a reputation to maintain. I'm not asking for charity. Graham's voice had gone cold. I'm offering to fully fund a scholarship program, starting with Jordan. The board members exchanged glances. "We'll consider it," Mrs. Blackwood said in a tone that meant they wouldn't. "But the boy would need to pass our entrance examinations. All of them, including Latin." "Latin?" Jordan asked. "What does Latin have to do with engineering?" "Tradition, young man. Something you'd understand if you had a proper foundation." After they left, Jordan slumped in his chair. Graham looked furious enough to throw something. "Forget them," Graham said. "There are other schools." "No." Jordan stood up. "I don't want any school that doesn't want me. I'll learn what I need to learn the way I always have." He paused at the door. "But thank you for trying." That evening, Jordan worked late in the lab again, pouring his frustration into his kinetic feedback engine. His grandmother arrived at 7 with dinner, fried chicken and mac and cheese in recycled takeout containers. "You look tired, baby," Miss Loretta said, watching him eat mechanically while still working. "I'm fine, Grandma." She pulled up a chair, her joints protesting. "That man Graham, he means well. But his world," she gestured at the pristine lab, "it wasn't built for us. Maybe I can change that. Maybe. Or maybe it'll change you first." She touched his face gently. "Your mother was brilliant too." But she knew that being brilliant while black means working twice as hard for half the recognition. Don't let them break your spirit trying to prove what you already know you are. After she left, Jordan found a note she'd tucked under his notebook. "Remember who you are and whose you are. Love, Grandma." 2 days into his 2-week deadline, Jordan discovered Derek's first act of sabotage. Components he'd ordered hadn't arrived. When he checked the system, the orders had been canceled. "System error," Derek said with a shrug when confronted. "These things happen." Jordan didn't argue. Instead, he went to a junkyard in his old neighborhood, buying broken parts for pennies and rebuilding them into what he needed. When Derek accidentally deleted his computer simulations, Jordan reconstructed them from memory. When the 3D printer suddenly became unavailable, Jordan hand-carved prototypes from blocks of aluminum. Maya watched this with growing anger. "You should report him to Graham." "No," Jordan said, filing down a component by hand. "If I can only succeed when everything's perfect, then I haven't really succeeded at all." By the end of the first week, word had spread through the company about the kid who was building an impossible engine despite Derek's interference. Engineers started stopping by after hours, offering tools, advice, and sometimes just encouragement. Jordan absorbed it all, learning not just engineering but politics, persistence, and the power of quiet dignity in the face of opposition. The International Tech Expo was 3 weeks away when Graham made the announcement that sent shockwaves through both his company and the broader tech world. He would be presenting Jordan's kinetic feedback engine as the centerpiece of their exhibition, with Jordan himself as the lead presenter. "You can't be serious," Derek said during the emergency team meeting. "We're going to put a 13-year-old kid on stage at the most important tech event of the year." "The engine works," Graham replied simply. "Jordan's tests show 40% efficiency improvement over anything currently on the market. That's not just an incremental advance. It's a paradigm shift." "Built by a child," Derek spat. "Built by a genius who happens to be young," Maya corrected. She'd become Jordan's fiercest defender in these meetings. The announcement went public that afternoon. Within hours, the tech world was buzzing. Forums lit up with debates about whether Graham had lost his mind or found the future. The original viral video resurged, now with added commentary from engineering experts who broke down Jordan's repair technique frame by frame. Jordan found out about the announcement when reporters started calling his grandmother's apartment. The first call came during dinner. "No comment," Miss Loretta said firmly, hanging up. The phone immediately rang again. By the 10th call, she unplugged it entirely. "This is what I was afraid of," she told Jordan. "They're going to put you on display like some kind of circus act." "It's not like that, Grandma. The engine is real. It works. I'm not worried about the engine, baby. I'm worried about you." The next morning, Jordan arrived at the lab to find a news crew waiting in the lobby. Marcus quickly ushered him through a side entrance, but not before someone shouted, "Jordan, is it true you've never been to high school?" Inside, Graham had called a meeting. "We need to prepare you for what's coming. Media training, presentation skills. I know how to explain my work, Jordan interrupted. It's not just about explanation. It's about perception. How you stand, how you speak, how you handle hostile questions. Hostile questions? I thought this was a tech expo, not a trial. Graham pulled up his tablet, showing Jordan some of the online discussions. Look at this, Graham Whitaker's latest PR stunt. And this, child labor or child genius? Half the industry thinks I'm exploiting you. The other half thinks you're a fraud. Jordan read through the comments, his expression unchanging. Then he looked up. Do you think I'm either of those things? No. Then why do we care what they think? Because perception becomes reality in this world. If they don't believe in you, the engine won't matter. The media training was a disaster. The consultant Graham hired, a polished woman named Rebecca Sterling, tried to teach Jordan to speak in sound bites, to deflect difficult questions, to present himself properly. Stand straighter, she instructed. Make eye contact, but not too much. Smile, but not too wide. Your accent, can you tone it down? My accent. Jordan looked confused. The urban inflection. It might make you seem less authoritative. Jordan stood up. You want me to pretend to be someone else? I want you to present your best self. This is my best self, Jordan said quietly and walked out. Graham found him later on the roof, sitting against an air conditioning unit with his notebook. She means well, Graham started. No, she doesn't. She means to make me acceptable. There's a difference. Jordan looked out over the city. My mom never changed how she talked, even when people said it would help her get better jobs. She said if they couldn't hear her intelligence past her accent, that was their limitation, not hers. Graham sat down beside him. You're right. Forget the media training. Just be yourself, even if myself isn't what they expect. Especially then. 2 nights before the expo, Jordan couldn't sleep. The kinetic engine sat complete on the lab bench, a piece of impossible made real. He ran his hands over its surfaces, feeling every joint, every connection he'd crafted despite Derek's sabotage, despite the doubters, despite everything. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Check your email. The email contained a single link to a blog post that had just gone live. The title made Jordan's stomach drop. The truth about Graham Whitaker's boy genius. The post, published on a popular tech blog, contained what claimed to be leaked documents showing that Jordan's designs were actually created by Graham's team, with Jordan just serving as a front. The evidence was convincing. Technical drawings with timestamps that predated Jordan's arrival. Emails discussing the kinetic engine concept months before. All fake, Jordan realized, but professionally done. The comment section was already filling with people saying they knew it was too good to be true. Jordan's phone rang. Graham. I saw it, Jordan said immediately. It's Derek. Has to be. We'll fight this, Jordan. We have documentation, security footage. It won't matter, Jordan interrupted. People believe what they want to believe. And this is what they want to believe, that someone like me couldn't possibly create something like this. Don't give up on me now. Not when we're this close. Jordan looked at the engine again. I'm not giving up. I'm just tired of having to prove I exist. The morning of the expo dawned bright and harsh. Jordan stood in his grandmother's apartment, wearing the new suit Graham had bought him. It felt like armor that didn't quite fit. You look handsome, Miss Loretta said, adjusting his tie. Like your grandfather did when we got married. You never talk about him. He died before your mother was born. Vietnam. But he was brilliant like you. Could fix anything, make anything. The army just saw him as another body to send overseas. She cupped his face. Don't let them make you small, Jordan. You're bigger than their limitations. The expo center was massive, a cathedral of technology where the future was bought and sold. Graham's booth was in the prime location, and a crowd was already gathering. Jordan could hear the whispers, see the phones raised to record. That's him, the kid from the video. Think it's real. Probably just Graham's latest publicity stunt. Graham appeared at his side. You ready? Jordan nodded, though his mouth was dry. The presentation was scheduled for 2 o'clock. As the time approached, the crowd grew larger. Jordan could see reporters, competitors, and in the front row, Derek, his expression unreadable. Graham took the stage first. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 weeks ago, a young man fixed my car with nothing but intuition and a paper clip. Today, he's going to show you the future of energy efficiency. Please welcome Jordan Thompson. The applause was scattered, skeptical. Jordan walked onto the stage, feeling every eye tracking him. The microphone seemed impossibly tall. Then someone shouted from the crowd, "Is it true you stole the designs?" The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Jordan could feel Graham tense beside him, ready to intervene. But Jordan stepped to the microphone. "My name is Jordan Thompson," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I'm 13 years old. I live with my grandmother in an apartment where the heat doesn't always work. I learned engineering from YouTube videos and library books. And yes, I built this." He pulled out his original notebook, the one he'd carried for years, and held it up. "Every design in here is dated. Every idea time-stamped. Not because I thought I need to prove anything, but because that's how my mom taught me to work. Document everything because memory fails, but paper remembers." He opened to a page dated 18 months ago, showing the first crude sketch of the kinetic feedback concept. This was before I ever met Mr. Whitaker, before I knew his company existed, when I was just a kid with an idea and no way to build it. The crowd had gone quiet. Jordan continued, his voice gaining strength. "You want to know if I stole this? I couldn't have, because the designs they say I stole from, they don't work. I know because I've seen them. They're linear, traditional, exactly what you'd expect from engineers trained to think inside the box." He turned to the engine display. "This works because it thinks in circles, not lines. Because it comes from someone who had to make broken things work, not someone who could always afford new parts. It comes from necessity, not theory." Without waiting for permission, Jordan activated the engine. It hummed to life, nearly silent, efficient beyond anything the industry had seen. The display showed the energy recovery rate, 43%, even better than the tests. "You can doubt me," Jordan said, looking directly at Derek. "You can say I'm too young, too poor, too black to have built this. But while you're talking, it's running. And that's the only truth that matters." For a moment, there was silence. Then, from the back, someone started clapping. Slowly, others joined in, until the applause was thunderous. But Jordan wasn't finished. He pulled up his computer simulation on the main screen. "I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works. Every equation, every design choice, every failure that led to success. Because real innovation isn't magic. It's work, and I've got nothing to hide." For the next hour, Jordan taught. He explained concepts that had stumped PhD engineers, but in language that made sense to everyone. He showed his failures, his iterations, his process. He answered every question, no matter how skeptical, with patience and precision. When it was over, the crowd wasn't just applauding. They were on their feet. Graham watched with pride as journalists rushed forward, not with gotcha questions, but with genuine curiosity. But Derek had one more card to play. That evening, as the expo was winding down, social media exploded with a new leak, security footage that appeared to show Jordan entering the lab weeks before he officially started, supposedly stealing designs. Jordan saw it on Maya's phone. The video was doctored, but cleverly done. His heart sank. Graham was already on the phone with his legal team when Jordan stopped him. "No, let me handle this." Jordan took out his phone and started a live stream from his grandmother's apartment. Within minutes, thousands were watching. "Someone really wants you to believe I'm a fraud," he said to the camera. "So let me show you something." He pulled out a box from under his bed, full of notebooks going back years. Page by page, he showed his progression, from simple bike repairs to complex mechanical theory. He showed dated receipts from the library for engineering books. He showed screenshots of the online courses he'd taken with timestamps. "This is my life's work," he said. "Not stolen, earned." Then he addressed Derek directly. "I know you're watching. You're angry because I did in 2 weeks what you couldn't do in a career. But that's not my fault. That's not my problem. And trying to destroy me won't make you better. It just makes you bitter." The live stream went viral within hours. The truth was too obvious, too documented, too real to deny. Derek's falsified evidence crumbled under scrutiny. By morning, he'd been fired, and Graham's legal team was preparing charges. But Jordan wasn't celebrating. He sat in the lab, looking at his engine, feeling the weight of what had happened. Maya found him there. You won. You proved them all wrong. Did I? Or did I just prove that no matter what I build, I'll always have to fight to be believed? Maybe, Maya admitted. But you also proved that you can win that fight. Graham appeared in the doorway. MIT wants to offer you early admission. Whenever you're ready. Jordan looked at the offer on Graham's phone. Then he looked at his engine, his notebooks, his hands that had built impossible things. Not yet, he said. I've got more to build first. And more to prove. Not to them, to myself. The weeks following the Tech Expo transformed Jordan's life into something unrecognizable. His phone, once silent except for his grandmother's calls, now buzzed constantly with interview requests. University recruiters and tech companies wanted to hire a 13-year-old consultant. A documentary crew from Netflix had reached out 3 times, and someone had started a Wikipedia page about him that Jordan refused to read. Graham's office had become Jordan's refuge from the chaos. He spent his days there working on refinements to the kinetic engine, trying to ignore the weight of everyone watching him. Yo wants to fly you out, Marcus announced, entering with a stack of mail. Harvard's offering a full scholarship starting at 15. And someone from Tesla left 6 messages. Jordan didn't look up from his work. Tell them all no thank you. You can't say no to everyone forever, Graham said, reviewing the offers. These are opportunities kids dream about. Kids who want those dreams, Jordan corrected. I just want to build things without everyone staring at me. The staring had become unbearable. At the grocery store with his grandmother, people recognized him and took photos. At the library, whispers followed him through the stacks. Even in his own neighborhood, where he'd always been just Jordan, he'd become something else, a symbol, a story, a thing to be discussed rather than a person to be known. Maya noticed the change in him. Where once Jordan had been eager to explain his ideas, now he worked in silence. His notebooks, previously left open on any available surface, were now kept locked in a drawer. You okay? She asked one afternoon, finding him staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. Someone wrote an article about how I'm proof that anyone can succeed in America if they just work hard enough, Jordan said quietly. Like systemic poverty is just about not try hard enough. Like I'm not lucky to have met Graham, to have been in the right place at the right moment. You're not just lucky. You're brilliant. So was my mom. She died fixing cars for $8 an hour because no one would look past where she came from. Jordan closed his laptop. They want me to be proof of something that isn't true. And if I fail, I prove the opposite, that people like me really can't make it. The pressure was taking its toll in other ways too. Jordan had been invited to join Preston Academy after all. The board had reversed their decision after the expo, suddenly discovering he was exactly the kind of diverse talent they wanted to cultivate. The acceptance letter had arrived with great fanfare, photographers present to capture Graham and Jordan shaking hands with Mrs. Blackwood. Jordan's first day at Preston was a disaster. He arrived in his best clothes, which were still obviously from discount stores. His backpack was the same one he'd used for 3 years, held together with safety pins. The other students, arriving in cars that cost more than houses, looked at him like he was an exhibit. In advanced physics, the teacher introduced him as our celebrity student and asked him to share his inspiring story with the class. Jordan mumbled something about just wanting to learn and spent the rest of the period feeling 30 pairs of eyes boring into his back. At lunch, he sat alone until a group of students surrounded his table. But they didn't want friendship. They wanted to know if he could help with their college applications, if being seen with him would look good on their social media, if the rumors about him building a new kind of engine were true. You're like actually poor, right? One girl asked, as if poverty was a fascinating medical condition. What's that like? Jordan left campus at lunch and didn't go back. You can't just quit, Graham argued when Jordan told him. I'm not quitting. I am choosing. There's a difference. Jordan pulled out his notebook, showing pages of new designs. I can learn everything I need online and in your lab. I don't need to perform my poverty for rich kids' entertainment. The blog situation got worse. Maya, who'd been Jordan's staunchest defender, gave an interview to Tech Weekly that was supposed to be about women in engineering. But the journalist had twisted her words, pulling quotes out of context to create a different narrative. The headline read, "Graham Whitaker's engineer says boy genius have a lot to learn." The article quoted Maya, saying Jordan was just a kid who would need real engineers to implement his ideas properly. What Maya had actually said was that Jordan, despite being just a kid, had ideas that challenged real engineers to think differently. But nuance didn't generate clicks. Jordan found Maya crying in the lab bathroom. "I didn't mean it like that," she said. "They twisted everything. I was trying to defend you, to say that age doesn't determine ability, but they made it sound like." "I know," Jordan said simply. "It's not your fault." But something had shifted between them. Maya, who'd worked for years to be recognized in a male-dominated field, suddenly found herself invisible next to a 13-year-old boy. Her own innovations, her contributions to making Jordan's engine actually manufacturable, were forgotten. She was just the engineer who helped the kid. The resentment she tried to suppress leaked out in small ways. She stopped offering suggestions. She worked on her own projects when Jordan was in the lab. She started leaving early. Jordan noticed, but didn't know how to fix it. He could repair engines, but not relationships fractured by fame he'd never wanted. Then came the corporate pressure. Graham's investors wanted to fast-track the kinetic engine to market. They saw dollar signs, IPO potential, a chance to dominate the electric vehicle market. But they also wanted to minimize Jordan's involvement. "He's a liability," board member Richard Stone explained during a tense meeting Jordan wasn't supposed to hear, but did because the conference room walls were thin. "A minor can't sign contracts. He can't do press tours. And frankly, the optics of a child being the face of our innovation makes us look like we're exploiting him." "Jordan invented this technology," Graham argued. "We're not cutting him out. We're not cutting him out. We're protecting him. And the company. We'll give him a nice payout, set up a college fund. Everyone wins." Jordan heard Graham's fist hit the table. "He keeps his rights to the patent. Non negociable. Then maybe we need a CEO who understands negotiation better." That night, Jordan worked alone in the lab until his eyes burned. He wasn't building anything specific, just keeping his hands busy to quiet his mind. The weight of being exceptional was crushing him, and he was only 13. His phone rang. "Grandma, you need to come home," she said, her voice strange. Jordan ran the 12 blocks, his designer shoes, a gift from Graham, slapping against wet pavement. He found his grandmother on the kitchen floor, conscious but gray-faced, one hand pressed to her chest. "Can't breathe right," she gasped. The ambulance ride was a blur. The hospital waiting room was purgatory in fluorescent lighting. Jordan sat in a plastic chair, still wearing his Preston Academy uniform he'd sworn he'd never put on again, watching doctors move with practiced urgency behind glass doors. A doctor finally emerged. "Your grandmother has acute heart failure. We've stabilized her, but she needs surgery. Valve replacement. Without insurance." He named a number that might as well have been $1 million. Jordan felt the walls closing in. All those offers, all those opportunities, and he couldn't even afford to save the one person who'd always saved him. He called Graham, who arrived within 20 minutes. "We'll handle it," Graham said immediately. "Whatever she needs. I can't take more from you." "It's not taking, it's giving. There's a difference." But Jordan could barely hear him. He stood at the window of his grandmother's room, watching her sleep with tubes and wires turning her into part of the machinery. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the woman who'd raised him with steel in her spine and love in her voice. "I can fix engines," Jordan said, his voice breaking. "I can solve problems that stump MIT graduates. But I can't fix her. I can't solve this." Graham put a hand on his shoulder. "Not everything is meant to be fixed by us, Jordan. Sometimes we just have to trust other people to do their work, the way people trust you to do yours." But Jordan had lost faith in trust. The world had shown him that trust was conditional, that brilliance was only valued when it was profitable, that being exceptional meant being alone. He sat by his grandmother's bedside through the night, sketching in his notebook not engines or innovations, but memories. His grandmother teaching him to tie his shoes. his mother's hands covered in engine grease. The small apartment that had held all the love in the world, even when it couldn't hold heat in the winter. The morning before Miss Loretta's surgery, she woke to find Jordan asleep in the hospital chair, his notebook open on his lap. She studied her grandson's face, seeing her daughter in the curve of his jaw, her late husband in the intensity of his focus even in sleep. She quietly asked the nurse for paper and a pen. "My dear Jordan," she wrote in her careful script, "if you're reading this, then the Lord has decided it's my time, or maybe you just needed to hear these words while I'm still too stubborn to say them out loud. You think your gift is fixing things, but baby, your real gift is hope. You give people hope that impossible isn't permanent. You gave that rich man hope that innovation still matters more than money. You gave those engineers hope that knowledge doesn't only come from universities. But somewhere along the way, you stopped hoping for yourself. I see it in your eyes. The weight of being special is crushing you. So let me tell you something. You weren't born to be small, but you also weren't born to carry the world. You were born to light the path for others like you. Not by being perfect, but by being possible. Your grandfather died fighting a war he didn't choose. Your mother died fighting poverty she didn't deserve. Don't you die fighting to prove yourself to people who refuse to see you. Live, Jordan. Build. Create. But most of all, choose joy. Choose it fierce and choose it daily. You're my heart walking around outside my body. Whatever happens, know that you were loved before you were brilliant. And you'll be loved long after the world forgets what you built. All my love, Grandma." She folded the letter and tucked it under Jordan's notebook just as he stirred awake. "Morning, baby," she said softly. "How are you feeling? Like I'm about to get a fancy new valve and outlive everyone." She squeezed his hand. "Graham's been by. He's a good man. He's trying to protect me from his board. Maybe you should let him." Before Jordan could respond, Graham himself appeared in the doorway. "Surgery's in 2 hours. The best cardiac surgeon in the state is flying in." "I don't need the best," Miss Loretta protested. "Yes, you do," Graham and Jordan said in unison. After they wheeled Miss Loretta to surgery, Graham took Jordan up to the hospital's roof. The city spread below them, morning light turning windows into mirrors. "I need to show you something," Graham said, pulling out his phone. He showed Jordan a video of a workshop in Detroit where kids were building robots using a simplified version of Jordan's kinetic feedback principle. "They're calling themselves the Spark Club." Said you inspired them to believe engineering isn't just for rich kids. Jordan watched the video, seeing himself reflected in these kids' excitement. "I didn't mean to inspire anyone. The best inspiration never means to." Graham pocketed his phone. "I built my first computer in my dad's garage. He was a janitor. My mom was a seamstress. Everyone said I was lucky to get out. But you know what? I didn't get out. I carried them with me. Every board meeting, every innovation, every success, they're there." He pointed to a building across the skyline. "That's my first office. A closet, really. I worked 18-hour days, not to prove I belonged, but to build something that mattered. You're doing the same thing, just younger and with more eyes on you. How do you handle it? The weight. I remember that the work matters more than the watching." Graham turned to face Jordan directly. "I want to show you something else." They drove to a rundown building in Jordan's neighborhood. The windows were boarded, graffiti covered the walls, and a for sale sign had been there so long it had become part of the landscape. "What is this?" Jordan asked. "It used to be an auto shop. Your mother worked here, actually, before it closed." Jordan's breath caught. "Mom worked here for 2 years. The owner, Mr. Harrison, no relation to Derek, he kept records. Your mother rebuilt 17 engines in this shop. Every single one still runs today." Graham pulled out a key. "I bought it, if you want it." They entered the dusty space. Jordan could almost see it. His mother's hands working on engines where now only shadows lived. But more than that, he could see possibility. "What would I do with it?" "Whatever you want. Make it a lab, a school, a place where kids like you can build without having to prove they deserve to exist." Jordan walked through the space, his fingers trailing along workbenches that might have held his mother's tools. In the back office, he found something that stopped his heart, a photo still taped to the wall. His mother, pregnant with him, standing next to a rebuilt engine, smiling like she'd conquered the world. He carefully removed the photo. On the back, in his mother's handwriting, "For my baby, dream bigger than this place, but never forget it made you." "I want to teach here," Jordan said suddenly. "Not like Preston teaches. Real teaching. Kids from the neighborhood. Show them what I learned. Then let's do it." This opening day arrived gray and uncertain. Jordan stood in the Spark room, wearing jeans and the Bulls jersey from that first day, no longer oversized. He'd invited kids from his neighborhood, put up flyers posted online. But as the clock hit noon, only 3 kids had shown up. Then 4, then 10, then 20. By 2 o'clock, the Spark room was packed. Kids who'd never held a wrench were learning to diagnose engine problems. Teenagers who'd been told college was impossible were understanding engineering principles. Jordan stood in the center of it all, not as a genius or a prodigy, but as someone who remembered being them. "First rule of fixing," he called out. "Look where everyone else forgot to," the kid shouted back, already learning. Miss Loretta arrived in a wheelchair, still recovering but insisting on seeing this. She watched her grandson teach with the same patience his mother had shown, the same belief in possibility his grandfather had carried to war. "That's my baby," she whispered to Graham, who stood beside her. "He's remarkable," Graham agreed. "No," she corrected. "He's Jordan." "That's enough." As the afternoon wore on, Jordan felt something shift. The weight of genius hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something else. Purpose. He wasn't just building engines anymore. He was building futures. A young girl, maybe 9, tugged on his shirt. "Mr. Jordan, I can't make this work." She held up a simple circuit that wouldn't close. Jordan knelt beside her, remembering being 13 and afraid to fail. "That's okay. Not working is just the first step to working. Let's figure it out together." As he helped her trace the problem, he caught sight of his reflection in a polished piece of metal. He didn't see a genius or a symbol or a story. He saw his mother's determination, his grandmother's strength, and maybe, just maybe, his own version of enough. The Spark room's lights stayed on until well past dark. Young voices excited about possibilities they'd never imagined. Jordan stood by the photo of his mother, now framed on the wall, and made a promise. "I'm dreaming bigger than this place, Mom, but I'll never forget it made me." 3 months after the Spark room opened, it had become something bigger than Jordan ever imagined. Every afternoon, kids filled the space, learning not just engineering, but possibility. The walls were covered with their designs, wild and impractical and beautiful. Jordan had just turned 14, though he felt decades older. That's when Bryce Caldwell entered the picture. Caldwell ran Nexus Technologies, Graham's biggest competitor. He was everything Graham wasn't: ruthless, political, willing to destroy what he couldn't own. He appeared at Graham's office on a Tuesday morning with an offer that was really a threat. $30 billion for your company, Caldwell said, sitting uninvited in Graham's office, including all patents, all personnel, all projects. "Not interested," Graham replied without looking up from his work. "You should be. Your board is. They're tired of your pet projects." Caldwell's eyes flicked to a photo of Jordan and Graham at the Spark room opening. "Tired of you playing father figure instead of CEO? Get out." Caldwell stood, straightening his suit. "When this ends badly, remember I gave you a choice." The first sign of trouble came that afternoon. Jordan arrived at the lab to find his workstation locked out, his computer access revoked. "System maintenance," the IT technician said, not meeting Jordan's eyes. But Jordan knew better. He'd learned to recognize sabotage in all its forms. He worked anyway, using paper and pencil, his mind still faster than any computer. Graham was in board meetings all day, emergency sessions called by investors who suddenly had concerns about the company's direction. Jordan could see him through the glass walls, fighting battles in a language of spreadsheets and projections. That evening, Maya found Jordan alone in the Spark room, teaching himself to code on an ancient laptop someone had donated. "Something's happening," she said. "Caldwell's been hiring our people, offering double salaries. And Derek's working for Caldwell." Maya nodded. "Has been for months." "And Jordan, Your engine design was on Caldwell's server this morning. Our legal team found it during routine monitoring. Jordan's stomach dropped. Ow, we don't know yet. But Caldwell's claiming independent development. He's saying you had access to their research during your time here, that you stole from them. The irony was sharp enough to cut. Jordan laughed, but there was no humor in it. First they say I'm too young to create. Now they say I'm young enough to steal. The next morning, the story broke. Tech prodigy accused of intellectual property theft ran on every tech blog. The narrative was compelling. A poor kid, given access to advanced facilities, helped himself to more than he was offered. Derek appeared on morning shows, his lie polished to shine. The boy is talented, Derek said to a sympathetic interviewer. But talent without ethics is dangerous. He had access to our preliminary designs at Nexus before Graham poached him. We have documentation. The documentation was forged, but it was good. Timestamps that preceded Jordan's work. Emails that shouldn't exist, but somehow did. A paper trail leading backward from Jordan's innovation to Caldwell's lies. Jordan watched from his grandmother's apartment, feeling the walls close in again. Baby, Miss Loretta said, now fully recovered and fierce as ever. You still have your notebooks? They'll say I faked the dates. Not if we can prove when you bought them. She stood up, moving to her closet. From a shoebox, she pulled out receipts, hundreds of them, carefully organized by date. I keep everything. Every notebook I bought you. Every pen. Every pencil. All dated. All from before you met any of these men. Jordan stared at the receipts. His grandmother had been building his defense for years without knowing she'd need to. Why did you keep all this? Because I knew someday the world would try to make you small, and I wanted proof that you were always big. They brought the receipts to Graham's legal team, who combined them with security footage, purchase records, even weather data to create an unassailable timeline. Jordan's ideas existed before Caldwell's company even had an electric vehicle division, but Caldwell had another car to play. Jordan was scheduled to demonstrate his clean energy bike engine at a community event in his neighborhood. It was meant to be a celebration, showing kids from the Spark Room what they could build toward. Local news would be there. Community leaders. Everyone who mattered to Jordan. The morning of the demonstration, Jordan arrived to find his prototype disassembled. Not broken. That would have been too obvious. But subtly sabotaged. Connections loosened. Calibrations shifted. Designed to fail spectacularly and publicly. We should cancel, Maya said, checking the components. No. Jordan's jaw set with determination he'd inherited from generations of people who'd been told to give up. They wanted to hide, to run. That's not happening. He spent the next 3 hours rebuilding, recalibrating, checking every connection twice. Kids from the Spark Room arrived early to help, their small hands working alongside his, their faith in him absolute. Mr. Jordan, one boy said, someone saying online you're a thief. Do you think I am? The boy considered this seriously. No, thieves take. You only give. The demonstration was set for 2 o'clock. By 1:30, the community center was packed. Jordan could see cameras, protesters Caldwell had somehow organized, and in the back, Derek himself, smirking like he'd already won. Graham pushed through the crowd to reach Jordan. You don't have to do this. We can fight them in court. Courts don't change minds, Jordan replied. Actions do. 2 o'clock came. Jordan stood before the crowd, his clean energy bike engine on display. He could feel the hostility from some, the hope from others, the weight of being 14 and having to defend his right to create. My name is Jordan Thompson, he began, his voice carrying over the noise. I'm accused of stealing ideas, but I want to show you something. He pulled out his original notebook, the one he'd carried for years. But instead of showing his designs, he showed something else, pages of failures. Designs that didn't work, ideas that went nowhere, years of trying and failing before succeeding. Thieves don't fail this much, he said. They take what works. But creators? We fail until we don't. He started the engine. For a moment, nothing happened. Derek's smirk widened. Then, with a smooth hum that sounded like the future, the engine came to life. Not just running perfectly, efficiently, beautifully. But Jordan wasn't done. He pulled up a tablet connected to the engine's computer. Mr. Harrison, he called out to Derek. You say this is based on Nexus designs. Come show us. Point to one component, one line of code, one element that matches your supposed original. Derek's smirk faded. He hadn't expected to be called out directly. Come on, Jordan pressed. You were lead engineer. Surely you know your own designs. The crowd turned to Derek expectantly. He approached the engine, his face reddening as he realized the trap. Jordan's design was so fundamentally different from anything Nexus had ever conceived that Derek couldn't even pretend to recognize it. This is a publicity stunt, Derek muttered. No, Jordan replied. This is engineering. Something you forgot how to do when you started playing politics. He turned back to the crowd. This engine will be open source, free for anyone to build, improve, use. Because real innovation isn't about owning ideas. It's about spreading them. The crowd erupted. Not just applause, joy. Kids from the Spark Room surrounded the engine, already planning improvements. Community members recorded everything, the truth spreading faster than lies ever could. But the knockout blow came from an unexpected source. A young woman pushed through the crowd, Caldwell's own assistant. I have something to say, she announced, holding up a flash drive. This contains emails between Mr. Caldwell and Mr. Harrison, planning to steal Jordan's designs, forge documents, and destroy his reputation. I've already sent copies to the FBI, the press, and Graham Whitaker's legal team. She looked directly at the cameras. I've watched Mr. Caldwell destroy 3 young inventors before Jordan. I won't watch it happen again. The revelation exploded across social media in real time. Within hours, Caldwell was under federal investigation. Derek was arrested for corporate espionage. Nexus Technologies' stock crashed. That evening, Jordan sat in the Spark Room, exhausted but unbroken. Graham found him there, staring at his mother's photo. You won, Graham said. Did I? Or did I just survive? Jordan turned to face his mentor. How many others didn't? How many brilliant kids got crushed before they could create? That's why the Spark Room matters. That's why you matter. You're changing the system, not just working within it. Jordan nodded slowly. The engine patent, I want to sign it over to the Spark Room. Let fund more centers, more kids, more chances. That patent is worth millions. Then it'll fund a lot of chances. 6 months later, Jordan's clean energy bike engine powered lights in villages across Ghana, fans in schools in India, and medical equipment in clinics in rural Alabama. The open-source design had been improved by engineers worldwide, each iteration shared freely, building on Jordan's foundation. Jordan turned 14 quietly, refusing Graham's offer of party. Instead, he spent his birthday teaching 9-year-olds how to build their first motors in the Spark Room, which had expanded to 3 locations in Chicago. Mr. Jordan, a girl named Aisha asked, her hands covered in grease. Were you scared when you fixed that rich man's car? Jordan smiled, remembering that morning that now felt like a lifetime ago. Terrified. But fear and courage aren't opposites. They're partners. I don't understand. You can't be brave without being scared first. Otherwise, you're just confident. MIT had renewed their offer, this time with a program designed specifically for Jordan. He could attend part-time, design his own curriculum, start whenever he felt ready. It's everything you wanted, Graham said, reviewing the offer in his office. On your terms. Is it what I wanted? Or what everyone expects? Jordan set the letter aside. I'm already learning, already building, already teaching. Why'd I need their validation? You don't, but you might benefit from their resources. Maybe, when I'm ready. But right now, the Spark Room needs me more than I need MIT. The documentary crew that had been following Jordan for months was wrapping up their filming. They'd captured everything. The triumph at the expo, the sabotage attempts, the community rising to defend one of their own. But the moment that made the final cut was quieter. It was Jordan sitting with Miss Loretta on their apartment's fire escape. The city spread below them in the evening light. You proud of me, Grandma? He asked. I was proud of you before you fixed a single thing, she replied. Pride isn't about what you do. It's about who you are. And you, my dear boy, are exactly who you're supposed to be. The documentary would go on to win awards, but Jordan never watched it. He was too busy building. One morning, a letter arrived that stopped Jordan cold. It was from an engineering firm in Detroit. They'd found 17 engines his mother had rebuilt, all still running, all with her signature carved tiny in the metal. They wanted to create a memorial scholarship in her name. Jordan traveled to Detroit with Graham and Miss Loretta. Standing in the warehouse, surrounded by his mother's work, he understood something fundamental. Legacy wasn't about being remembered. It was about what kept running after you were gone. She would have been so proud, Miss Loretta whispered. She is proud, Jordan corrected. Every engine still running is her pride in motion. Back in Chicago, the Spark Room had become a movement. Kids who'd been written off were building impossible things. A 12-year-old had designed a water purification system. A 10-year-old had created a new kind of solar cell. They weren't just learning engineering. They were learning that their ideas mattered. Graham's company had not only survived Caldwell's attack, but thrived. The board, seeing the public support for Jordan and Graham's vision, had backed off their demands. Innovation mattered more than immediate profit. They'd finally understood. Maya had become the Spark Room's lead instructor, teaching with the patience she'd learned from watching Jordan. Every failure is data, she'd tell students. Every mistake is information. Every breakdown is a chance to build better. One evening, Graham invited Jordan to a gala celebrating young innovators. Jordan wore his first real suit, fitted properly, though he still felt more comfortable in his Bulls jersey. "I want you to give a keynote," Graham said. "I don't do speeches. You do now. These kids need to hear from someone who made it without forgetting where they came from." Jordan stood before an audience of young inventors, entrepreneurs, and dreamers. He saw himself in their eager faces, their desperate hope that someone would believe in them. "Everyone here will tell you you're special," he began, "that you're gifted, that you're exceptional. I'm here to tell you something different. You're not special. You're necessary." The room went quiet. The world needs what you can build, not because you're geniuses, but because you see problems others ignore. You come from places others forget. You fix things others throw away. He pulled out his battered notebook. "This isn't special. It's just work. Daily, unglamorous, necessary work." He looked directly at a young girl in the front row who reminded him of himself 2 years ago. "You'll be told you don't belong, that you're too young, too poor, too different. Use that. Build from that. Create solutions for people like you, because no one else will." "What if we fail?" someone called out. "Then you'll be in good company." "I fail every day. Failed this morning, actually. Try to make breakfast and burned everything." Laughter rippled through the room. "But breakfast isn't why I'm here. I'm here because I failed forward. Because every broken thing taught me to fix the next thing better." After the speech, young inventors surrounded Jordan, not for selfies, but for advice. He gave it freely, remembering when knowledge was all he'd had to share. A year passed. The Spark Room had 20 locations across 5 states. Jordan's patents, all signed over to the foundation, funded programs that had helped over 3,000 kids. His kinetic engine was being manufactured globally, with profits going to education initiatives. On a cold morning in December, Jordan stood where it all began, the intersection where Graham's car had died. The spot looked the same, but everything else had changed. Graham stood beside him, both of them quiet in the morning bustle. "Any regrets?" Graham asked. "No, maybe one." Jordan pulled out his phone, showing Graham a design he'd been working on. "I want to build something that doesn't just fix problems, something that prevents them." "What kind of something?" "A car that can't break down. Not won't, can't. Self-diagnosing, self-repairing, self-improving. A car that learns." Graham studied the design. "That's impossible." Jordan grinned, the same expression he'd worn holding a paper clip and facing a dead hypercar. "Everything's impossible until it's not." They walked back to the office, discussing possibilities. Jordan was 15 now, taller but still slight, still carrying his notebook, still wearing secondhand clothes by choice rather than necessity. "MIT called again," Graham mentioned. "They'll keep calling. And when I'm ready, I'll answer. But not to learn what they want to teach what they need to learn." That afternoon, Jordan returned to the Spark Room to find it full of kids building their own impossible things. A boy was explaining his perpetual motion machine that wouldn't work but showed beautiful ambition. A girl had created a new type of battery using kitchen chemicals. Another group was building a robot from recycled phones. Jordan moved among them, offering guidance, but mostly just witness. This was his real engine. Not the one that converted motion to power, but the one that converted potential to possibility. His phone buzzed. Another interview request. Another university offer. Another company wanting to buy what he'd built. He ignored them all and knelt beside a 6-year-old trying to connect 2 wires. "It won't work," the child said, frustrated. Yet, Jordan corrected. "It won't work yet. But look," he guided the small hands. "See where the connection is weak? That's not failure. That's information. Now we know where to make it stronger." The connection sparked to life, and the child's face lit up brighter than the small LED they'd powered. "I did it. You did. Remember that feeling. That's what changing the world feels like. Small, quiet, but absolutely electric." As evening fell, Jordan stood on the roof of the Spark Room, looking out over his neighborhood. The same broken streetlights, the same cracked sidewalks, but something fundamental had shifted. Kids walked differently here now. Heads higher, possibilities broader. Miss Loretta joined him, moving slowly but steadily, carrying 2 cups of tea. "You did it, baby," she said. "You built something that matters." "I built something that builds," Jordan corrected. "That's different." "Better." They stood together, watching the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of possible. Below, the Spark Room hummed, with young voices discovering that they could fix more than machines. They could fix futures. Graham appeared in the doorway. "There's someone here to see you." Jordan turned to find a woman in her 30s, holding a young boy's hand. She looked familiar, but he couldn't place her. "You don't know me," she said. "But 9 years ago, your mother fixed my car for free when I couldn't afford repairs. I was pregnant, scared, alone. She didn't just fix my car. She told me I was stronger than I knew." She nudged the boy forward. "This is my son, Marcus. He wants to be an engineer." Marcus, maybe 8 years old, looked up at Jordan with awe. "Can you teach me?" Jordan knelt to Marcus's level, seeing himself, seeing every kid who'd been told they couldn't, seeing the future the Spark Room was building. "I can't teach you to be an engineer," Jordan said. Marcus's face fell. "But I can teach you to be yourself. And if yourself happens to be an engineer, well, then we'll build something amazing together." He stood, leading Marcus into the Spark Room, where other kids immediately surrounded him, eager to share what they were building. Jordan watched from the doorway, his notebook tucked under his arm, his mother's photo in his pocket, his grandmother's hand on his shoulder. "What now?" Miss Loretta asked. Jordan looked at the stars, just becoming visible above the city's glow. "Now we keep building, keep teaching, keep proving that genius isn't rare. It's just rarely given a chance." He thought about that morning 2 years ago when he'd pushed his broken bike toward a stranger's broken car. Such a small moment that had changed everything. Not because he'd fixed an engine, but because he'd shown the world that solutions come from unexpected places. "I thought I was fixing engines," Jordan said, echoing words he'd thought before, but understanding them differently now. "Turns out, I was building something bigger." "What's that, baby?" Jordan smiled, watching kids stream out of the Spark Room, carrying their inventions home to show their families, their faces bright with the kind of hope that builds tomorrow. "Proof," he said simply. "Proof that we were always here, always capable, always ready. We just needed someone to hand us the tools." The city lights twinkled below, each one a problem to solve, a thing to fix, a future to build. And in the Spark Room, surrounded by the next generation of builders, fixers, and dreamers, Jordan Thompson, no longer a boy, not yet a man, but absolutely exactly who he was supposed to be, picked up his tools and got back to work. Because somewhere in Chicago, a car was broken, a kid was brilliant, and the world was about to change. Again, what if the next world-changing genius is someone we pass by every day without a second glance? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more powerful stories like this.